Hey. So now I'm going to chapter 5, circle 11. I'm going to try and get through circle 11, 12, and 13. And then his final words on this. And hopefully that should lock us out on chapter 5. Alright. Zachary makes the same estacade as above in order to hit Alexander on the lower part of the body, but with his hilt a little higher so that it covers his shoulder. In response to this, Alexander turns aside, draws back his right side some little distance, with the upper part of his body leaning forwards and the arm and sword extended so it hits Zachary in the base. So before he was thrusting him, was it the lead shoulder? I could just go up and read, but I'd rather look at the funny pictures. So look at circle 11. So we had circle 9, yeah, shoulder. Circle 10, we've got him going just straight through the face with that subjection straight down. Now I got circle 11, where it's got the same vibes as circle 9, but a little bit more of this coverage, that little voiding action, that C-shaping of the belly, super important. Pulling in and seeing that, like, yes, they're wearing their kind of like faux Roman reenactment clothes here, because Roman reenactments happened then too, right? But you can see how he's pulling in his hips. He's almost still rear-weighted in the image, which is what helps cover off that hit. Cover off? I don't think that's the right word by any means. It allows him to avoid it purely on distance. You can see how the lift of the arm is ever so slightly covering off the shoulder so that circle 9 can't happen. It's really cool, right? This carries on further when you're looking at plates where they're thrusting and covering the face. Probably one of the most annoying things someone can do when you're first learning how to counter thrust, because you're like, yeah, but I should be able to counter thrust you in the face. Why can't I hit you? Oh god, I must be bad at it. No, the thrust they're doing is a cracked out like imbricade, but done enough not to go around you, just to cover their own face, and then like the armpit and the belly and the hip become the primary targets, right? So this is in that same vein, that he's going to cover off that primary target, that following that theme that you see of, well, now Zachary knows what Alexander will do. He will counter that. Which I find quite funny. I think someone described it to me as a trait of philosophical arguments, but I don't know it well enough, or that kind of idea well enough to propagate it by any means. Cool. The beginning of this operation is the same as the preceding, namely that the two opponents having come into measure at the first instance, Zachary has made a feint inside Alexander's arm, which has been counted just as in circle number 9. But the difference consists in the estacade and the appropriate counter, for in the estacade made in circle number 9, Zachary lowers his arm and sword so far that he exposes the shoulder, but in the present operation he guards himself from this. I'm just marking the guards himself from this, just so that I have like a slight highlight of what this circle's for. Because the image, I mean, when you read this and you look at the image, the accompanies it as a circle 11, yeah, you know that what the fuck's going on. But when you're kind of just like blasting through, just looking at the images, like, oh yeah, it's a, and maybe it looks better in the original. I don't remember every circle. I don't remember every circle when I've looked at it in the original. I'm just not built like that. So it is good to like just make notes of what the fucking goals were in some of this. Like I'm also going to draw a line from the hilt to the shoulder socket with the sharp part of a highlighter. Where is it? Just so I can have that highlighted. Actually, I'm going to do it from the hilt of Alexander, crossing through the arm and the hilt of Zachary all the way to the shoulder. There we go. Which I think looks kind of neat. For in advancing the body while cutting under Alexander's blade, in order to attack and step with the right foot to the letter R, he carries his arm a little higher, so that he covers his shoulder with the hilt. Ooh. As soon as Alexander perceives the first trace of change from the feint, having first of all made his preparation, making his body lively, raising his right foot, and extending his arm and sword to the point of the latter at an obtuse angle. Extending his arm and sword for the point of the latter at an obtuse angle, as had been described more amply in the preceding operation. At the instant that his opponent's sword begins to descend in order to deal him a thrust to the lower part of his body, he lowers his own similarly, bringing the point near the level of his opponent's head in order to wound him again in the shoulder in the straight line. Alright. Slight fucking detour. Do I want to do that detour now? No, I'm going to read the rest of this on the off chance that he just talks about this, and then I'll talk about it, if it doesn't pop up. Seeing it covered by the hilt, though, he instantly turns his right side a little outward, with the toes of both feet forward and some drawing back of the right foot, and the lower part of the right side, bending the upper part even further forwards. At the same instant, he brings his arm and hilt down on the opposing blade, specifically the hilt, so no blade on blade. And continuing to lower them, he takes the opportunity to wound his opponent in the face as shown in the figure. In these descriptions, I'm just going to mark that so I know that that is the end of this chunk. So now he's going to talk about things. Who'd have thought Thibault talks about things? In these descriptions, Zachary's feints in the operations of Circle 9 and 11, and similarly that of 12 following, are more often made inside the arm than the outside. This is because these are more advantageous and easy to do in this way, and more common among those who aim their thrusts at the lower part of the body. Huh. Yeah, right. Like most people who try and hit leg shots like to feint outside and hit the leg. I like to feint inside and hit the leg due to motor pattern from doing LARP, where I will thrust slash reach slash cut whatever, like kind of haphazardly towards someone's shield shoulder. Watch the shield just raise up and dump it with a straight arm into whatever's exposed below the shield. So that's a very personal preference, and I do that in comp as well, that I will thrust inside and cut the leg, and usually I do that fast enough that the only way I can get the fuck out is by walking, which usually means I end up accidentally turning the opposite direction to them and just walk slash running straight the fuck off on them. But that is a personal preference. But I also hit the belly and thigh a lot in the same way, and I think it's for these same reasons, which is really cool that he brings that up. Yeah, because who the fuck's hitting? Why is that awkward? Feint. Oh, okay, that's an awkward angle. So you can thrust in. Is that the same motor pattern? It fucking is. Cool. The circling out circle parry is a lot easier for people to kind of just like get loaded into the system. You see people kind of like, you know, especially modern fencing or very foil or very modern fencing inspired fencing where they externally rotate the circle parry as like a bit of a feeding or a search. And this actually follows that same pattern of like circling round with your clockwise action if you're right-handed. Where like if you want to hit the belly, you can thrust inwards, and then as you drop it, if you do want to turn into like maybe an Italian first-esque position, it kind of swims into it and actually leads into it. But if you feint over the top and try and bring that round, there's a bit of this weird, you pull away during their parry. It's just a bit awkward. But if you pull away sets up to the cut, it's fine, right? Where you pull away from the inside helps the arm turn and go into that low position. That's neat to me. It's because they're more advantageous and easy to do in this way, and more common among those who aim their thrust at the lower part of the body. However, if one wishes to do otherwise, since everyone is free to do as they like, it will involve no other difference but in Alexander's preparation, for he will always take superiority of the blades on the side of the feint in order to counter the estacade, and they will always work in the same way, whether it comes from outside the arm or inside. Cool. Massive points there. It is also necessary to observe in this operation, and in all similar ones, that the drawing back of the body and the feet be measured and moderated according to the approach of the opponent's body, and point according to the comment on Circle 9. But insofar as the final execution of this attack requires one more step to be added beyond what is shown in the demonstration of the figures, note that when Zachary's blade ends up under Alexander's outside quillion, provided that Alexander grips the hilt from above, he enters upon Zachary with the left foot and graduates the sword in imitation that which is shown in number 10. In case Zachary's blade ends up under the inside quillion, Alexander enters and graduates while stepping forward with the right foot. Why the fuck does that matter? What? Why the fuck does that mean things? What? Alright, let's figure that out. That doesn't mean things. What? I love that. I love that he cares. Dear God, I hope that this isn't botched. So what are we looking at? We've got... what are the key points here? That's so fucking... I thought this was going to be quick. Zachary's blade, highlight. Alexander's outside quillion. Enters with the left foot. Which is shown in Circle 10. Alright, and different highlighter. Yo, we're getting real funky. Some new tech up in here. Zachary's blade ends up under the inside quillion, Alexander enters while stepping forward with the right foot. Alright. Inside Quillian, circle 10. And why is that? What? Okay, cool. Why does that happen? Pulls the body back. Inside Quillian, right foot. Inside Quillian, right foot. Okay. Outside Quillian, left foot. Ah, alright, that makes sense. I would have thought it would be the other way around first, but no, that makes sense. I'm just gonna write another schizophrenic note. Inside Q. Looks like a G. Good work, Mosh. And we've got big L on that leg. Outside Q. R. And let's like have a couple of dots going towards it. And it won't make any sense to me in like 3 days' time, because this is always a fever dream. The reason it makes sense to me is that with the inside Quillian but the right foot, if I was to do my left foot, it would bring the targets that are somewhat obfuscated by the inside Quillian. If my left foot comes in, I actually bring my body round this side of my sword, allowing the off chance that that continuing still hits me. But if it's my right foot, it drives my sword through that position, and I still stay fairly behind my sword, and then vice versa for the other side. So inside Quillian, what? No, I better have marked that correctly, or I'm gonna be fucking annoyed. Outside Quillian, left foot. I marked it perfectly opposite. Oh, this book is going to be my downfall. Oh my god. Inside Quillian. Yeah, cool. So my idea is correct. I just wrote the wrong thing on my page. Alright, so what is happening with the inside Quillian? As we dive that inside Quillian in from directly above, and it thrusts through and allows the face to get hit, we have their hand also coming across a little, because the blade itself is like what? Here's your blade, here's your hilt. So their blade is getting disrupted over here, which allows my blade to stay free and go through that position, while their blade is getting shoved off from like here. You allow the right foot to come around so that there's an ever so slight circling around the hilt, so the targets stay behind the hilt, which is neat. Then we've got the outside Quillian. We have the same thing happen. So outside Quillian is pressing it towards your outside, and your left foot's coming in, and you can still hit the face over the top of the sword. Even easier if it's only the Quillian doing it. Yeah, cool. That's neat. I haven't thought about that. I definitely just haven't thought about that differentiation. That's very cool. Cool. There was another point that I wanted to mention. As soon as Alexander perceives the first trace of change, obtuse, amply proceeding operations. In this instant, his opponent's sword begins to descend, bringing the point near the. Ah, cool. So, the reason that you want to be going for the shoulder in previous ones, not only for its arresting potential that I hope he brings up. Maybe it's in a different chapter he brings it up. When it's going for that low line, if you hit the face, your sword is too far away from their sword. Which means that you can hit the face and then their ability to, because, look at me, right? Here's my shoulder socket, here's my head, here's my spine. This is a natural point of rotation. So when I rotate my torso, from my spine being in the same place, I have an extra foot of reach. That's not the whole story, but it is an important part of it. God, I'm bringing up LARP a lot today. If you've ever used a flail at LARP, one of the main things you do, especially if there's no head hits in your game, is when they go to parry with their shield, you bash the haft of your LARP into the shield so it wraps around and hits them in the back. Sometimes backs and torsos are crit zones, so you go whack and it rotates around and goes thunk. This is neat. My joke thing of like rapier and dagger is that it's also like flail fighting. You, like, if you use a flail against someone who's cutting at you, you hit their weapon with the haft and you let the flail head smack into them wherever it's going to land. Try not to hit them in the head unless your game lets you. And rapier and dagger is the same, that you like, oh, here's the thing coming in. I'm going to haft, head goes in. Like, as a broadly piss-takey kind of hot take that rapier and dagger is just single flail. Just dumb, right? Where was I going with this? So there's all these moments in fencing where you can stab someone in the face and you still lose. This is one of the, it's like the George Silver's military riddle shit. And it is a riddle. It's like, oh, you did stab them in the face with a sword, but they get to hit you. Sometimes right of way helps this. Sometimes lockouts help this. I don't like those answers. I think they're a bit cheap. I think they're useful for reasons that we can talk about other times, and actually, like, this isn't me trying to be a hemobaldy about it by any means. I most likely do not agree with most people who say why they shouldn't have right of way. But what I like that this teaches you when you don't have right of way is your own targeting. What's happening is when they thrust covering their shoulder or covering their face, is that their strong and their weak is laterally more across to the inside. This is helpful for you. It's not as helpful as, like, a slightly C-shape open position thrust. They're like, I'm thrusting around like this, and then you can hit me here, because then this occurs. As we hit here, I've actually got my strong and my weak flying through this path here to help obfuscate. I can't say it very well. It's a moral failing. This arm coming in, and then any C-like shapes down the track. It's really neat. But if I'm already in here, I can start picking targets further across to have the same action. So I'm not hitting the shoulder just to arrest it. I'm not hitting the shoulder just because it's closest. I'm not hitting the face just because it's higher scoring. I'm not hitting the face because it's a kill shot. I'm hitting the target that is not currently occupied by the strong of the other person. But I'm hitting the shot that in the next tempo, my strong occupies their weak. If they go to do anything further in the next tempo. So that's really neat. I think that's really neat because like the not covering the shoulder means that it's further out. That means it's better to hit the shoulder to make sure that you get to occupy their weak in the next tempo easier. But if they have put their strong and their weak over to the inside, you hit the face because now the shoulder is occupied and looked after by their strong. You don't want to fly through that space. They'll just laugh at you. I think that's really important to making this work and deciding which target you want to go with. Alright, circle number 12. Zachary once again tries to hit his opponent low on the body, with the hand so high that it covers the head, and with the point low. Let's have a look at that image, circle 12. This is cute. Now you can really see. I've already highlighted Alexander's blade pointing at the face, just so I could like know where he was attacking. But I'm going to highlight the line between the face, Zachary's hilt, and Alexander's hilt, because I think that's important. So we're dealing with that evolution of like, if I just go for your belly, you'll go through and hit my shoulder. Alright, I will defend with my shoulder as I go to hit you in the belly. I'm going to come across a little, I'm going to thrust towards your belly, and I'm going to cover my shoulder. Alright, I'll hit you in the face then, because now you're occupying the space I should occupy if you're not covering it. But now I may hit you in the face. This is neat. He goes, well then I'll cover my face, and the shoulder will be mostly covered anyway. And then you do the following, right? Alexander, letting him approach, brings his point at the level of the opponent's head. And seeing that it is covered, he attacks Zachary's blade to subject it by turning aside the right side of the body, and in this way lowering the arm and sword together upon the opponent's sword, degraduating it. Pulling the right side away. I haven't read the rest of, I've read this fucking book. I can't remember all the plates, alright? I'd go insane. I haven't read the rest of this circle recently. If we just go off just this, the ideas that come to mind are along the lines of, cool, you're attacking my low line, you've faded in, gone slightly superior, you attack my low line, but your hilt's in front of your face. The act of The act of pulling my right side back does what? If I stay there, what happens? Oh, okay. So, the act of covering his own face also, no shit, brings the strong from in front of the shoulder, in front of like that shoulder line, brings the strong across all the way here. So then you are doing a slight imbricata thrust. I think I said something, or at least I thought something along those lines during circle 11. So if you go directly down from your position, their ability to yield around your hilt increases. This isn't to your benefit, but it kind of is because it shortens the reach. So, God, I just need to breathe more, apparently. I'm very tired today. As you pull that right side back, but dump that hilt, connecting your hilt to their blade. I don't know if it defines what part of the hilt just yet. We'll go through that. And degraduating it. You're not degraduating your own blade, you're degraduating their blade. This is cool because if they step in too deep and you put your hilt in their strong, their ability to still see shape and hit you in the hip or in the ribs is actually quite high. So dragging it down and pulling back. Let's have a look at the elbow. Perfect. What the fuck's wrong with me? Bending that elbow to slide your hilt down their blade a little stops it being able to duck around and fuck around anywhere near as much because you're still occupying their weak with your strong. And it loads up your further extensions in the future, which is really cool. Because we've still got circle 13. Where is circle 13 on this chart? Am I blind? Oh, it's the top left in the square in the back. Oh, the crease in the spine. I couldn't see the number 13. Hey. Yeah, cool. Alright, let's keep going. It is not enough for Zachary, in this present circle, after having made the same feint as above inside the opponent's arm, to cover his shoulder in making the estacade against the right side of his adversary. He must carry the guard of his sword so high that it also covers his entire head. Having lifted the foot during the feint, with a little advancement of the body, he then goes on to make the attack, continuing the same advancement of the body and foot, with the arm extended, the hand high, and the point low, lowering the foot finally to the ground on the diameter very close to the center, drawing the other behind it until it is within the circle. Alexander has made his preparation against the feint by lifting his right foot and straightening his body, extending his arm and raising his point, in the manner that is specified more amply in the other operations. As soon as he notices that the enemy begins to lower his blade with a noticeable advancement of the body, in order to strike him in the lower part of the body, he leaves his arm extended and moves his point up to the level of his opponent's head, since he sees no chance to hit Zachary at all because of the difference in the guard. And I think that's poor wording. Since he sees no chance to hit Zachary at all because of the space that the hilt and the strong is currently occupying, he turns a little to the outside, the pointing of the toes of both feet straight forward towards the enemy. Straight towards the enemy, sorry. The highlighting there made the T look like an F. But by this means, drawing the right side together with the arm and the sword back a little to the side. Lowering his hilt onto the opposing sword by bending the upper part of the body, crossing and degraduating the sword. pull in order to subject and dominate it perfectly, retiring the arm and hilt to his side with the quillions turned diagonally. Which turn? Cool. It looks by the image. Well, if your quillions were turning with your outside quillion turned up, that would be really rough on the elbow, but turned down, so your inside quillion is really easy on the elbow, which that just lines up with the anatomical position of the arm, right? The crease of your elbow lines up with your thumb. The elbow point lines up with your pinky. That is your anatomical position for that area, that part of your arm. Now, just as it is said above, that one must not hurry too much in drawing back, it is necessary to do the same in this present operation. Seeing here, one has to bend the body forward with a greater lowering of the arm and sword than before in order to subject the opposing sword. This is a thing that cannot be done without moving quite noticeably down and without uncovering oneself to serious danger outside the arm, if it is done preceptively before the proper time. Thus, it is necessary to let the attack come as close as possible, provided solely that one does not lose the means to draw back. Thus, the opponent is given the opportunity to pursue his movements in order to receive it with the assurance at the end of its movement, when he will have no reserve left for his defense. Otherwise, he would have the means to make and execute new plans. This precept is repeated to you here, since as the danger is greater than before, the notice is more necessary. Regarding what we have said about the necessity of dominating and subjecting the opposing sword by bending the body forwards while lowering the arm, this should not be understood to mean that the arm makes any movement of its own to accomplish this descent. It should not be understood to mean that the arm makes... Okay. But only that it is brought lower by the accommodation of the body without any movement of its own except a very small one of the wrist, turning the outside quillion diagonally upwards to the right side. What? Sometimes I don't think Michael Greer knows which one is outside and inside quillion, because it confuses me, and I wanted to go through and check that compared to the images, and that was going to send me insane. I mean, where are we? We're right foot forwards. The tilt, the elbow bend. Turning the outside quillion diagonally upwards towards the right side. The point crossing towards the left side in order to cross, subject, and degraduate as represented on the plan of the circle. What? Oh. Everything I said before makes sense if you're pointing the sword still at the person. That's not what he's doing. As represented on the plan of the circle, I hate you. So if we look at the shadows of the swords on the ground, let's have a look at that. Just gonna cover that in fucking highlighting, because it's important to not ever fucking lose that. I'm so hateful. So due to the hip hinge, due to the turn of the wrist, We've gone from here to here. So of course the outside Quillian gets the point up. You're doing like... You haven't seen my video on learning from books and inhibiting yourself to take foreign, like, ideas that you already have to fill in space too often. The next thing is going to sound very funny. It's like he's doing a crump, but it's getting pulled opposed to slammed. So we're not doing like a click crump or a windscreen wiper crump, but we're going to the crump position through to getting pulled into that position. And it goes across the blade beautifully. Oh, that's cool. Where we've got like probably his like 6 or 7 on Zachary's 5 or 6. I bet I'll just fucking say it in a second. Oh, I didn't. Cool. In order to avoid the danger of a cut under the blade, along with any other changes that may arise, there is nothing so necessary as this precept. By observing it, as soon as the enemy begins even the slightest move, the arm is already free and positioned to work on its own to defend and to attack. This would not be the case if it had descended by its own movement, for it is impossible to raise and lower it at the same time, or to accomplish the work of 2 times at the same moment. This notice will be very great usefulness on many occasions, and for this reason it must be well understood. I don't know, that's all good shit. It's all good shit, what the fuck? Alright, so we're going to use the inside Quillian to have this idea that as it gets pulled into position, it makes Zachary's ability to cut under have to go around the inside Quillian. And that's if he wants to cut under to go round to the outside, or cut under to hit the fingers, right? He has to go around that Quillian. So you're putting that Quillian in the way on purpose. We've got a beautiful blade interaction, and if on the off chance Zachary wanted to suddenly thrust through the weak, we can also just put the weak back into Zachary's face as he tries to graduate up the blade. This is all very cool. Oh, so even though, like, if he goes to go around the Quillian, of course you get to extend thrust due to that, because now he's got a big enough flight path that you have time to put the point on, hit, and even dump it again. And finally, this idea that it's not going down due to the arm going, fuck, don't hit me. It's going down because of this hip hinge that drags the arm down. So that on the off chance that while you're hip hinging that he goes to do something squirrely, you still have the ability to thrust forwards in the tank. Diving downwards, this is really cool. This lines up with a theme that I see throughout the whole book. Diving the arm downwards means that you can no longer thrust. Pulling the arm back and bending the elbow to pull and degraduate while the body does the dive down means that you can suddenly start extending when necessary. Alright, circle number 13, almost done. This is the continuation and execution of the proceeding. Alexander, having acquired the great advantage of subjection, am I just struggling, or is this just a weird sentence? Alexander, having acquired the great advantage of subjection, the opposing sword. No, it's meant to say of subjecting. Where's my pen? That one hurt me, because I really wanted to believe I was wrong. It could be the great advantage of subjection of the opposing sword, which kind of just is a shit sentence. We can just do subject ing.
subjecting the opposing sword, degraduating and accommodating the outside quillion turned diagonally upwards. Here turns the quillions back to the horizontal and turns his point against the enemy's side below the hilt and the arm. So we currently have the blade on the strong. As he goes through that position, and we're against the enemy's side below the hilt and the arm. Cool. Let's see how he advises that. He advances his entire body together with the arm and sword and suddenly takes the opposing blade with the outside quillion. Yes! Fuck yes. That's cool. Suddenly takes the opposing blade with the outside quillion, graduating it and moving his right foot up to the letter H and shifting his weight onto it, while bringing the other along the ground to the circumference. At the same time, he drives the point through the body of the enemy so far that he strikes Zachary's hilt, forces him to bend his arm, and nearly let the sword fall from his grip, at the mercy of his opponent, as the figure demonstrates. Cool. That last chunk, that very last bit, fucking useless. Damn near distracting. Recurring thing that I'm seeing as what is fucking up people's Distrezor. Now, it may be intentional in Distrezor, and that leans into the idea that most Distrezor intentionally sucks, which it is allowed to. Just makes me sad. But this idea that, like, I'm seeing in Thibault all these things that Fabris does, of driving the hilt through the weak. This is so cool. If you have curved quillions, if you don't even have the Thibault grip, this is going to be a bit funk, and you're probably going to have to do it in maybe a fourth. So you'd be sitting over in third and then blast it in fourth through the position. If you have curved quillions, you're going to try and have to use the hilt, so you've only got like this much wiggle room, opposed to this, then this, or like even this for your fucking quillion. You're gonna leave the blade. You are detaching off the sword. You're in this crump-like position, forward leaning. You have inside quillion fucking blade interaction. You're going to leave his sword. You're going to put the point forwards and allow the front of your outside previously turned diagonal quillion to blast through as a separate entity through Zachary's sword while you thrust him in the armpit. That is so cool, because if I keep blade tension there and I try and maybe scoop with my inside quillion, which will feel organic because you kind of don't want to let go. If I leave the sword, they can leave and things go wrong. Kind of. The act of you sliding and slipping and sword rubbing tells them what's happening, and then they will mostly start powering outwards and then put their arm on your arm, or powering outwards, scooping you up and chopping you in the fucking thigh. All these, like, just annoying things, because you choosing to stay on the blade and sliding through tells them what's happening. But if you suddenly detach and allow your outside quillion to catch it, can I replicate this? Boom. We're here like this. If I suddenly detach and catch with that, we have a separate object that is coincidentally welded to your sword, dealing with their sword, and you get to go round their hilt, round their shoulder, round their arm, straight into that opening of the armpit. Oh, very Fabris-like. Here you have the examples which demonstrate the great usefulness of our first instance, and of the straight line presented thereat. Fortified against all manner of feints, assured against all attacks, whether long and resolute, or tardy and slow, high, low, straight, or curved, outside or inside the arm, countering them here in one time, there in two, Now with the body upright, now a little bent forwards or back, always making the attack with small movements which have more force than showiness, and making the execution with as much force and assurance as possible, in opposition to the common practice.
Isn't it depressing that that still rings true?
If you say to me that it is not likely that anyone may easily reach such perfection in demonstrating all these effects, I answer that nothing commendable can ordinarily be acquired without great labor. I highlighted that because things that fill me with the work hard, do good things, work hard, do great things, work hard, be great, these ideas, I don't know, they're important to me. Nonetheless, I'm assured of the regard of those who have no other fixed habit, for the more they put the precepts to the test, the more they will find them perfect. Just as gold put into the furnace receives a greater luster through the test of its purity, our instructions, being closely studied, examined, judged, practiced, and repeated, will always appear even better. For when an honest inquiry is made into the verity and importance, into their verity and importance, it will be seen that the incertitude of fortune has no part in them, and that the rules of science alone dominate it with such perfection, that the lover of this art, who will render themselves capable of it, will borrow courage and assurance of arms, even if they lack the certitude and dexterity of their usage by the feebleness of their forces. In those 13 plates, you have so much. I've given over, what is it? 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, and now probably 1. So we're at nearly 4 hours of just reading it out, commenting on it, talking about different chunks. That's as much info as a lot of fencing texts just give you. This is one single chapter. I find it quite naive and childish that people look at other texts and say, nah, this is all I need to do. I can figure out the rest. I mean, power to them. If you sat and figured out Pythagoras' theorem, having never heard of it, if you sat down and figured that out right now, because your IQ is 186, people would be greatly impressed and then show you how children learn that these days, and you could have used all that thought onto something new. It's a bit depressing, hey? This book lets, I don't think I'm that smart, but it lets me see and discuss all these interactions that so many books refuse to even admit exist, and so many coaches refuse to admit even exist. And then maybe one day I get to add more to it. Maybe. It's just so much. You've gotten to go through the power of foot angle and the power of torso angle. You've gotten to get a taste of how your targeting affects what keeps you safe. You've gotten to look at a gradient on how you react to levels of commitment. You've got to deal with getting targeted in the main three quadrants of like below, inside, and outside. And how not all actions have insta wins, but have moments that must be created to then win in the next. And doing things and practicing things, maybe in 2 tempo or 3 tempo, where maybe you can shorten it to 1 depending on your opponent's decisions. What a wealth and what a breadth and depth of things to learn and practice from this one chapter. I do not think you should reread this and get this chapter perfect before you progress. That would be ignorant and silly. This isn't the fundamentals. The start of this book is not the fundamentals, and then the end of this big book is not the advanced. This isn't grade school. This is purely what he chose to show you first. And to get lost in a single part and not progress through the whole thing would be a great disservice to your ability to progress and learn. But it would also be a disservice to even understanding what you've read so far. So don't get stuck on chapter 5. Don't get stuck on chapter 17. And don't get stuck on chapter 27. Read this whole fucking dumpster fire and read it again. Then get stuck on chunks and read it again. What a miraculous fucking book. What a miraculous work. It doesn't feel like it should be real some days. Amazing. Alright. Oh, that's right. I gotta fix this note. Next to circle 13 is hilt to blade. That's very important. Allowing yourself to use your quillion and your hilt like a separate entity, like a separate weapon, to occupy their weapon. Kind of as like using the haft of a flail and then letting the flail head go wherever it needs to go. Or letting your offhand dagger occupy their weapon while you put your point wherever you need to. You get to use a Thibault rapier with correct length quillions and correct hand position, like 3 separate weapons. One of them scores, the other 2 may or may not do things to help you. And they're all welded into one object, and they're all implemented with one arm. I find that equally freeing to inspiring. I'll start on chapter 6 soon.